is it tough being an investigator? Is it a tough role?
I'm very busy, but I love it. I mean, it's my passion, and I mean, 90 to 95% of the reports that you get in are prosaic objects. I get a lot of mylar balloons that'll flash in the sun back in the wind, and people will see that and they'll think it's a UFO. Drone sightings. You can see the contrail of a jet. Sometimes, if it's lit a certain way, will fool people, and even a weather balloon, which we kind of hate because, of course, the Roswell crash was blamed on a weather balloon, but it was not a weather balloon. But it's that 5%. When you go and you pick at a case and you look at it from every single angle, that 5% where it is an unknown and you can't explain it in any other way, that's what makes it worth it, and where I find my greatest joy is when I can't explain something.
Yeah. I was going to say, you mentioned drones. Have the introduction of drones made your job tougher? I mean, because
Yes.
they're everywhere.
They are everywhere. I had one woman who she put in a UFO report, and she said that a UFO was hovering over her daughter's high school graduation. And the more I talked with her, the more familiar this UFO sounded. And finally I said, did they take like overhead film of your daughter's graduation? And it's like, oh yes, it's a lovely film. It's like, I think that I know what your UFO was. And I explained to her what she was what she was describing. And and you have to be sweet to people,
Yeah.
It's not like I said, well, you saw a drone, and you silly person. No, if somebody hasn't seen something like that, I mean, that's another thing, and I think a service that MUFON provides for people is to explain what they saw, if we're able to figure out what prosaic object that was.
Yeah.
But then we have other cases where, I had one case that was in Azusa, California here, where there were two women who took chase after a UFO, and they got caught in a cul-de-sac. And they saw it was two objects. They were orb-shaped spherical UFOs, and they were heading towards the San Gabriel Mountains there. And they got caught in a cul-de-sac where they couldn't get out, and they thought that their chase was over. And suddenly there was this bright light that was off to the side, and they turned around, and there's this thing that looked like it came out of a science fiction film, hovering soundlessly over this house, less than 100 feet away from them. It's a pretty wild story, but what was interesting is that there was a gentleman in the next town over, about 3 miles away, who also put in a report of the exact same thing.
Right.
So we had multiple witnesses that were unconnected, and the deeper that I went into that case, the more it seemed to manifest for me that something very unusual and very strange had happened in this little town.
Well, you'd think in this day and age, I mean, an investigation would be a slam dunk. I mean, we're living in the age of smartphones, and we've got cameras on our phones, but people forget to take pictures.
Yes, and that's happened to me. I understand it. I felt embarrassed. I saw a UFO. It wasn't a vehicle, but it was. It looked, for all intents and purposes, like this very ornate, parabolic shaped antenna that was hanging over this hill, and it had no means of support that I could see, and I was pretty much gobsmacked. My jaw was dropped, and I did not pull my phone out. I did not take a picture, and I think some of this may be a psychological effect that our visitors have on the observer. I don't think that they necessarily want to be photographed or want a video taken. Now, we do know that there are military videos. the one sighting that they call the Tic Tac video that happened over near Catalina Island here, involved the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier and the Princeton, the battleship, the Princeton, and they got some pretty stunning video, and it was leaked out to the public. And I think that kind of opened up the subject for a lot of people, where it was a laughable matter for them before. Mm-hmm. And now people aren't laughing as much. The military takes it very, very seriously. But I think that that the video and photographic evidence are it's rare. You usually don't get that. Yeah. Usually people are seeing lights in the sky and you can't really tell them what that is. Yeah. You know,
it's almost like you see it, you're just awestruck by what you're seeing, and by the time you even think about pulling your camera out, it's gone.
It happens to all of us.
Yeah.
I felt really embarrassed to tell my my state director about it. You know, I felt like, well, some chief investigator I am, but he and his son saw an illuminated cupolaed disc out where they lived, and he didn't get a photograph either. So I don't feel so bad.
No.
It happens to the best of us. A friend of mine, Dr. Irina Scott, she's a PhD. She worked for the DIA. And she and her sister had a close encounter with a UFO when they were younger. And she finally got a photograph of it when it was way off in the distance. But this thing was right up close. They could see windows on this thing. Mm-hmm. It shone a bright green light into their car. It was a very, very strange sighting that she had. But even she, with her doctorate and all, she didn't think of, and she had a camera with film,
yeah.
Back before we had cell phones, but she had an actual camera loaded with film. She didn't get the photograph until the very last minute. So you've got like a little light in the distance,
What about the number of UFO sightings? Do you think they're understated? I mean, does every one get reported?
When I speak to various crowds, I'll do Stanton Friedman was a famous ufologist, and he used to do this. I'll ask people, how many of you have seen a UFO? And you'll see all these people raise their hands up in the crowd. And then I'll say, how many of you reported seeing a UFO? And you watch the hands all go back down. So, but we are there. You can, if you see something and it looks out of place, it doesn't look like something prosaic, you can go to MUFON.com, and it says right there in the website, report a UFO. And myself or another investigator, we have people we work regionally. So if you're in the California area, I will see your report. But you can report a UFO, and that's really where the rubber meets the road for us, because other than that, it's just a good story, right? But if you report it, it'll actually be investigated, and we will, if we can't figure out what that was, it will get the unknown status, which means it's a UFO. I'm not saying it's a spaceship, but maybe it is. It's an unknown,
Does the same sighting get reported by different people, and do you get the same descriptions coming up over and over again?
Yes, we do. I get a lot of black triangular UFO sightings out here. They seem to now. There's a question whether perhaps we've reverse engineered some of the technology that we have found, because there have been reported UFO crashes. And the Army is taking this very, very seriously. Both the Navy and the Army have both changed the parameters of reporting UFOs. They're encouraging it now. And apparently there's materials. Bigelow Aerospace apparently has some materials from UFO crashes that they're putting through, scientific, trying to figure them out. Reverse engineering work that they're doing, figuring out the metallurgy. One thing that I've heard is that what they found is that that some of the materials that they've gotten couldn't be created where there was gravity. It would have had to have been created in outer space, technically. So, but anyway, there's a lot of interest out there in officialdom right now. It's really changed from the way it used to.